Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 400. We made it, of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our third book is out. Go pick it up on Amazon. It's called From Letters to Leaders, Leveraging Your Fraternity or Sorority Experience to Land Your Dream Job. So go and pick up the book today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, sometimes we meet guests for the podcast while we're speaking on other college campuses. Our next guest and I were both speaking at Marshall University earlier this semester. We had a great time sharing stories about our fraternity and sorority involvement, what we're passionate about, and trying to figure out how we can help each other moving forward. I even met her mom, who was seeing Cassie speak for the first time, which was so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
And Cassie and I had so much in common. The students absolutely loved her. And I just knew it immediately that we had to get her booked on the show. This is somebody that you need to know. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Cassie. As Her Sorority Journey speaker, podcast host, and a TikToker, Cassie Little considers herself a sorority advocate and a community enthusiast. Her college sorority journey at Arizona State and early professional experience at Sigma Kappa sorority lit a fire in her soul that sorority has the power to change lives. Our chapters, officers, and members just need to be empowered in the role they play to create that reality. Starting this company in 2020 and learning too many lessons the hard way, running a business through a global pandemic, she is willing to try nearly anything to ensure that the national sorority community understands the power they hold and how to use this power for good of those around them. Welcome to the show, Cassie.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Listen, this is going to be so much fun. I knew right away that you were going to be an incredible guest. You're a great speaker, and everybody listening needs to absolutely know who you are. So the honor is all mine.
Thanks. Well, yeah, I'm excited to be here. And hey, 400, that's a huge feat. I'm honored to be your 400th guest. Thanks for having me.
Of course. It's our pleasure. And, let's talk a little bit about the undergraduate side, because I think that's where everything kind of came together for you. You decided on Arizona State for your undergraduate experience. So I'm sure you could have gone to various institutions. What made you decide on Arizona State?
Yeah, great question. So I actually saw myself going to like a small liberal arts college in California. I grew up in Portland, Oregon. I wanted to get out of the rain like any other Pacific Northwesterner, or probably Northeasterner too, from the cold. It's like I would love the idea of like going somewhere close to the ocean. That just was not in the cards for me and my family financially. I got an awesome scholarship to the Honors College at the University of Oregon. I grew up a huge Ducks fan. I currently live in Colorado, and so watching the Ducks play the Buffs this weekend was so fun, even though the Buffs have had a really good streak and I've been rooting them on, but I just love watching the Ducks win. Anyways, so I was thinking about the University of Oregon, or my other option where I got a great scholarship was Arizona State Honors College. And the reason I even applied there, both my parents actually went to Arizona State. So my amazing mom, who you got to meet in West Virginia, lost her brother when she was in high school, her younger brother. And so she wanted to stay super close to her mom all throughout college to support her. She was the youngest at that point. So she would literally bike to ASU every day. My dad was on the golf team. He came from Canada. So he went to Arizona State, also biked to campus. Little did they know they both lived on opposite sides of Portland Street in Tempe, Arizona. Both moved on with their lives, moved to Portland later on, and met in a bar and had all this stuff in common in Portland, Oregon. And so it was so fun to actually decide to go to Arizona State. And the decision was one, all my extended family was in Arizona, which was a huge factor. And as much as I loved Oregon, I did not want to join a sorority with everyone that I went to high school with. I was like, I love y'all, but I'm good to go out on my own. And so, and Arizona gave me that little taste of sunshine, a huge taste of sunshine. And I was not upset about getting to go to class in a crop top and leggings 9 months of the year. Like all year, you can wear like whatever you want, because the rare day at monsoons, you throw on a rain jacket and call it a day or skip class. I don't recommend it, but I may have a couple times, like the 2 days it rained. Unlike Oregon, you don't have that luxury. It's raining every single day. So that's like a little bit of my background of why I chose to go to ASU.
That's such a great story. I love that story. And you know what? You made the right decision. See, I made the wrong decision. I went to school at the University at Buffalo, where it is like snowy and
Yeah.
overcast, like 11 months out of the year. And there's like 1 month where we have good weather. That's about it. So you made the right decision. What can I
Yeah,
say?
I could never. I mean, especially growing up in a state where like when it snows, the city shuts down. Like
Mhm.
Oregon is, or especially like west of the Cascades, like ill-equipped for inclement weather. Like snow and Oregonians just like really don't mix. There's maybe like 3 like snow plows to the city of Portland's name. So anyways, I couldn't do it, but more power to you.
I made it somehow. And so you joined Sigma Kappa at Arizona
Yeah.
State. Tell our audience what made you want to join Sigma Kappa?
Yeah, my funny story. So I knew very little about any of the organizations going in because I came from out of state. And like social media was around. Like I had an Instagram, just it didn't play the same role in recruitment that it does now. And so while chapters were probably posting every day, I wasn't following them. So like I wasn't like up to date like throughout promo week of like who is who. And so most of my opinions of like what sororities I should join really came like in full transparency from like fraternity parties I was going the week before, just like hearing what specifically the men were saying, right? Noticing like who was wearing what shirts on campus. But like really tucking a lot of that away. A lot of it came like from open house round, right? Like just actually meeting the chapters. I feel like I went into recruitment with a really open mind. And I actually had a pretty turbulent recruitment process. That's something I talk about in some of my recruitment programming. And throughout that process, I actually was only preferenced by Sigma Kappa. So like throughout the whole process, I only had one option. So my options were join Sigma Kappa or don't be a part of this community. And I had a really hard time with that because I had felt like throughout the process, like such a rock star at different moments and then like so rejected at different moments. But the reason I stayed through the process the whole time was actually because of my recruitment counselor. I just wanted to be a part of a community that she was a part of. Like I just wanted to be with more women like Alex. Like I didn't really care what letters I was associated with at that point. I was like, I just want to be with more people like Alex who like actually see me for me and have my best interests at heart and like want to make sure that I feel like in control and like have autonomy in a process that like strips that from you. And so I ended up signing my MRABA and accepting my bid to Sigma Kappa because I was more excited about being a part of the Panhellenic community than I cared about having like autonomy in the process itself.
Mm, wow, that's wonderful. I mean, that's an advertisement right there to be a recruitment counselor. You can see what a difference Alex made. And if it
No
wasn't for
question.
Alex, I mean, you never would have made it.
Who knows? Yeah. Gosh, can you imagine? I can't.
No, I
Yeah.
can't. I can't even imagine what that looks like. I
Yeah,
mean, you
me
belong here, you
either.
know?
Yeah. I tell people that all the time. I tell my recruitment counselors that as we talk about this, like throughout the country, that like especially in like August when we're having these conversations, it's like you have the opportunity to like dictate the direction of someone's sorority journey. Like that's a really powerful thing.
Totally. I need to send some flowers to Alex, man, because she just did a wonderful job. That's all I can
Yeah,
say.
she's
And,
amazing.
you and I, we both had the privilege of working for our national headquarters as well. You worked as a leadership consultant for Sigma Kappa, and I feel like that's kind of the dream for a lot of undergraduate students, that
Yeah.
they could just graduate and work for their headquarters. So what was it like working for the national organization?
I the experience that I had is pretty unique in that I don't see it continuing in many other organizations to this day. I think the pandemic, as harmful and hurtful as it was for a lot of um, like physical areas of our life, like in terms of like social ability to like stay close and connected to people, and obviously like really hurt a lot of families and individuals. I think it really did a lot of good in allowing us to like reset and rethink like a lot of the things that we had considered normal. And so I think a lot of national organizations have taken really cool steps to rethink the program to make it even more impactful for the individuals who come to work for the national organization like right out of college. Because part of me, it was for sure a job, but like part of me, it felt like a fifth year in sorority in a, like an advanced leadership role. I mean, it makes sense, right? As a leadership consultant, I think I am like forever indebted to Sigma Kappa for giving me that opportunity, because beyond the like sorority exposure, I think the skill set of being able to be present with clients wherever you are while connected to a boss, headquarters, team, personal life, family, like across 3 time zones. Like I learned so much from how to like manage like my personal life, my professional life, regardless of where you are. I also learned how to like travel really effectively. I was a full-time traveler. That was my job. So I visited 15 campuses in 10 states in 2 semesters. And so that was just, and a lot of those were repeat visits. I spent a lot of time in Texas and North Carolina. And it was the most amazing experience to see that as different as sorority manifests itself across the country, like regardless of unique campus cultures or experiences, we're like all in it for the same reasons. We have the same goal, the same end result. And it's honestly that experience has shaped so much of the work that I do today. And so while I do like grieve a little bit that that experience doesn't exist for every organization anymore, I love seeing the leaps and bounds that have taken to make it really like competitive with like other professional entry level opportunities that first year out of undergrad would have available to them, you know, because I think that really like sets up our new alumni up for success, regardless of how long they're at that role. So instead of looking at it as a gap year, like that experience now exists to be like a salaried role, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. Well, there's no question that was a formative experience for you and you got a lot out of it. Now you're a travel pro like I am, so we can write a book together on how to travel effectively from
Yeah,
campus to campus.
yeah, no question.
Now, all right, so in 2020, right, we have this pandemic here. You decide you're going to launch your business. It's called Her Sorority Journey. So tell
Yeah.
our audience, why did you decide to create this company? What was your vision?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like tried a couple things after that experience working for my national organization, but ultimately just like came down to there being really good people in my life that kept reminding me that I like really hit my stride and like was so confident and purposeful working with sorority members and chapters and communities and just like the institution of sorority. And I think sorority is really valuable, but I think sorority is really valuable because of the impact it can have on women's lives from the ages of like 18 to 22, 23-ish. And I think that demographic is just where I have a ton of passion for instilling confidence, empowerment, and even just like a healthy relationship with yourself and like intuition that can shape the trajectory of the rest of your life. Like all of those things impact the way you show up in romantic relationships, personal friendships, in your family, in the workplace, in community. And I went through like I went through the gamut of like emotions and good and bad decisions like throughout college and like up until that point. Obviously I'm still really young. That really helped shape what I wanted Her Sorority Journey to feel like and how I wanted that to impact sorority members. So I started building out curriculum. What I envisioned was this like 3-step process of like how sorority members in different seasons of their sorority journey could really like maximize what sorority had to offer. And we called that the trailhead, the rest stop, and the scenic overlook, representing like the recruitment experience as a P&M, anywhere between like being a leader to like a junior a sophomore, junior member, like needing to stop and reflect and like reset perspective, to being a senior at that scenic overlook, looking back at all you've accomplished and like continuing your journey into your alumni years and taking those lessons learned with you. And so we started the company with a couple courses that we had like started building out. But the week I went to launch, super fun fact, the country shut down, as many of you are familiar with. And I talk to my audiences about this all the time. Like, where were you? St. Patrick's Day, 2020, because I was driving from Arizona to Denver, Colorado, like my final step of my move to Colorado. And I like went to stop at a Starbucks that day, and I literally wouldn't even let me in to use the restroom. Like, that's the state of our country in 2020, you know? And I just remember like thinking that whole week before leading up to that date, like, I have this all ready to go. I have the Instagram. I like have the marketing collateral. We finished the website. Like, is this going to land? And I remember I got in that night on the 17th, like breathed on the 18th. And then on the 19th, we launched anyways. I was like, you know what? Like, I think sorority members are still going to need this support and some kind of guidance in this uncharted season of their sorority journey. So let's try. Let's see what we can do. And so we started a podcast 2 days later, and we're turning out episodes like nobody's business. I think we recorded like 50 episodes. We have like a little over 100 episodes now. 50 of those episodes came from that first year. Like, and the company's now 3.5 years old. Like, we just had so much content that year, like so faithful to weekly blogs. And that's when we started the TikTok and like really grew a following around this concept of like sorority done better. And it's been really cool to like see how it's evolved and what it's become.
Man, I am so proud of you. I just think that's absolutely incredible that you launched it during the pandemic, and obviously, tons of success since then. So that's just an incredible story. I love it hearing about that. Obviously, recruitment is a big part of your platform. So
Yeah.
when you're working with recruitment counselors, when you're working with Panhellenic communities, what are some of the strategies that they can use in order to nurture meaningful relationships, a sense of belonging among their members and also the PNMs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we get recruitment prep wrong a lot of the time. And like, I can say that as someone who facilitated, like sat on the wrong kind of recruitment facilitation as a recruiter, and then also on the facilitator side of like being a chapter president, being on Panhellenic exec, and being a leadership consultant and facilitating like the wrong kind of recruitment prep. I think we spend so much time in the logistics and the nitty gritty of recruitment, of like how specifically for Panhellenic recruitment, right? Like how to enter your PNM in the room, and how to bump, and like how to look not weird moseying around the space, that we forget that we can't fake sisterhood in recruitment. Like, the things that we try to cram into that week before recruitment can't include forming authentic relationships with one another. And so when I have the privilege of working with communities prior to the week before their recruitment, I have so much fun having conversations around what does the culture of your chapter look like right now? What does sisterhood look like right now? Because your potential new members want to join something that like is like a healthy culture of a chapter that's already been created, not one that they have to like make healthy, or not one that they are sensing is like putting on the facade of being healthy. And I think it's just so important that we spend intentional time like knowing ourselves, knowing what we need, how to balance self-care with showing up in recruitment, so that we're able to intentionally invest in our sisters in a way that's not forced, that's not fake, in a way that has dealt with any pre-existing conflict or tension with like member relationships, with leader member relationships, with Panhellenic chapter rivalries, so that we can really approach recruitment in such a way that we are proud to welcome new members into our sisterhood. We aren't afraid of what they might see behind the curtain now that they're a member. So a lot of the conversations we have, and I tell all of the groups that I work with, that if you want to have a conversation about bumping, chanting, or the perfect like aesthetic combination of like what's going to really appeal to a potential member. Like, I'm not your gal. I actually don't know anyone I could point in that direction. I would love instead to have a conversation about how we could improve the culture of your chapter, because all the logistics matter. Don't get me wrong. Like, the logistics play a role in creating confidence in your recruiters. But we can't talk about the logistics if you aren't excited, proud, or see yourself as an owner in this organization.
Wonderfully said. I really love that chapter health, that foundation that you're trying to build of this house, right? So if the foundation isn't strong, then no matter what we do, it's not going to come across well to the
Right.
PNM. So you're focusing on, just relationships even before the PNMs even get into the equation. And if that's
Yeah.
healthy, genuinely healthy, right? Not just putting on a facade, but genuinely healthy, then the PNMs are going to see it and they're going to be attracted to it. I think that's a
Yeah.
phenomenal strategy. Really, really like it. But the reality is, you and I both know, because we've seen a whole bunch of chapters for our own headquarters and just chapters around the nation. Sometimes chapter morale is low.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is very little member engagement. Let's just be real for a second. So, what causes this chapter disengagement? And once we understand that we have chapter disengagement, what are we going to do to fix it?
Yeah. So another thing we talk about in a lot of our recruitment programming is that chapter morale. I think often we like throw that word around as if it's like a data point that's universal, right? That like this is the chapter morale of Sigma Kappa right now, as seen and experienced by every member of the chapter. I think chapter morale is unique to each and every member. And I think that each and every member invests differently. Each and every member confronts conflict or avoids conflict or resolves conflict differently, which means that each of us is going to have a different understanding of where morale is, depending on how much we are engaging with the things that we're frustrated with and how we're finding resolution in moving on from them, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think in chapter disengagement or chapter engagement, in the conversations that we have with communities, falls into like 4 categories, starting with misalignment, right? Like, often members can be disengaged just because their ideal sorority journey doesn't align with where their organization is taking them. So it could simply be like difference of direction, and oftentimes that can come down to like miscommunicated or misunderstood expectations throughout recruitment. The next one I think is just like a lack of information, right? So sometimes we're disengaged because we just like don't know what's going on, or we don't have a sense of like clear vision from our leadership, which can create lack of trust or just like a belief that they are not seeking our best interest as members, which can make us want to check out. The third is just being uninspired. Like, our leadership isn't taking the time to really thoughtfully communicate the why behind why the vision exists, what it's there for, and what it's going to do for the members. And then lastly, members don't have an opportunity to be an active contributor in that vision or goal. I think that's the key. And I think that is ultimately why a lot of members feel like their members don't care, is because they have not created opportunities for them to not just like do something to like check off a committee point, but no, actually be an active contributor and co-owner in that organization. And that's not to say, well, then that's the members' fault for like not getting engaged or not involving. I actually think there's like some responsibility on the leaders to go out of their way to create opportunities for the general member to be an active contributor in that organization, recognizing if you as a leader feel like an owner in this, it's because you have a role to play. We all need a role to play in the things that we do. And if we as leaders are not comfortable delegating some of that away, we are not going to be able to actually see our members rise up and have that level of like ownership and autonomy that we feel in our chapter. And ultimately, we rob them from the organization playing the pivotal role in their life that it has in ours. And I don't think you need a title to have that level of like professional and personal development that fraternity and sorority has to offer.
Amen. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think learning how to delegate is key to every chapter's success. I know it's really difficult because you and I both believe that we have to do everything. Otherwise, it's not going to get done right. We're like
Yeah.
perfectionists, and I totally get that. But if we're going to build a big company, the only way we're going to do that is as a team and to basically delegate, give responsibility to others. And ultimately, that's what's best for the chapter. I mean, we don't want to graduate and then have a bunch of people in the chapter that don't know how to run the chapter, that don't know how to do their jobs, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a really, really big thing. And that kind of brings us to the next point, which is I think fraternity and sorority, we do a terrible, terrible job with officer transition. I
Yeah,
think if
no
we just
question.
fix that one piece, then we can start building on successes and really get somewhere. But for some reason, in fraternity and sorority, we believe that we can just throw these members into brand new jobs, give them no training, and we think
Yeah.
somehow that's a formula for success. But meanwhile, that doesn't happen anywhere in corporate America, anywhere, right?
Mm-mm.
So, talk to us about officer transition. What should that process look like?
Yeah, I think for the sake of time, I will like simplify my answer to like the one thing that I think could change the whole officer transition model. Because yeah, I think the post-election transition, there's a million ways that could be improved. And I do think the national organization works pretty hard. Are like just to generalize, to try to create tools and resources to like aid outgoing officer in communicating what they did and how to do it to incoming officer. But I think the officer transition process, the reason it's so unsuccessful in fraternity and sorority is because it starts too late. I think officer transitions and informally, and this is not like it makes me think of bid promising as I start to talk about this. It's not like promising a future incoming officer a position, but I think like way before elections, like hopefully this episode will go out soon, so people will hear this, but right now, like end of September, early October, we have to, as current officers, we need to be empowering. Honestly, should probably happening like mid-September, but I'll let that go. We need to be empowering titleless leaders, so just general members of the chapter in their skill sets. Like if we see so-and-so being super faithful to show up to things, we just need to like confirm their loyalty. If so-and-so, another individual, has a great skill set in event planning, you've seen them like think creatively or like offer really helpful contributions in different capacities, we need to affirm that like in specific skill areas. If we know someone is in a major or is like really like thriving in accounting or is like helping tutor some of our other members in finance classes, right? Like we should honor and like elevate people in their skill sets. I think women specifically sometimes are really bad about this. I won't speak for the men. I'm sure men are bad about this
They're
too,
bad
about
too.
like actually like elevating one another in the things that they're good at. Sometimes for women, that's like from a place of like comparison or competition. But we are so much stronger as a chapter when people are walking boldly in their strengths and aware of them. And sometimes, especially between the ages of 18 and 24, we are still figuring out what those strengths are. So the more bold we are to say, like, hey, you're really good at this. Have you thought about a career in event planning or a year as social chair, right? Like, have you thought about what it would look like to be the vice president of new member education? You're like a really effective communicator in these ways. I think you'd be good at modeling this for some new members. When we say like, hey, do you want to be a new member educator? There's no like why behind that. But when we start that conversation with like, I see this in you, you are a stellar XYZ fill in the blank. I think you could consider like one of these officer roles. They are so much more likely to thoughtfully consider applying for a leadership role. Worst case scenario, they don't want to be a leader. That's fine. They don't want to be a titled leader. They now are so much more confident in what they contribute to the chapter, just in having that skill set. That's a win. That's a win in itself. So I think as officers, we forget that it's our responsibility to be like lifting up the next generation of leaders by like putting feelers out for who's interested in what, because the sooner that they have it on their radar that could be something they're interested in, the sooner they'll ask you questions about it, which will happen before elections, the sooner they're able to watch you do your job and how you do it, so they're able to like replicate that easier. It's not like learning to ride a bike the first time. They're just like taking the training wheels off because they've like seen you do it. And it can make elections smoother because people have kind of decided what they want to run for, and it's not scrambling to get people to apply for things. And I think sometimes though we want to be sure to clarify that this is not in an effort to like promise anyone a position, but really in an effort to like elevate someone in their skill set that could be good for multiple positions. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense to me. I love that assessment of skills. I think we should do that right away. I think, as the new members come in, we should be
Yeah.
doing that, really an analysis of their skill set. And there's various tools out there that are free that can figure that out for you. But also, I really like what you said about empowering others. And I agree with you, as chapter president of Sigma Kappa, if you came to me and you said, you know what, I really see that you've got amazing accounting skills and we really need a treasurer, right?
Good
Like
treasure.
that
Yeah.
that would be like so empowering for me that I would wear that as a badge of honor that the Sigma Kappa
Yeah.
president said this to me. And now, because you said it as a leader, now I believe that I can do it. Like I
Yeah.
might not believe it until you said it. And so I think
Yeah.
that's super important just to put that out there.
That's
So I
why I ran
really,
for
really liked
Panhellenic
it.
delegate.
Yeah.
Like 2 months after I was elected, or 2 months after I was initiated, I was like, actually, I was initiated the week before I ran for Panhellenic, the day before I ran for Panhellenic delegate. But someone put it on my radar when I was a new member, like a month before, just because I was showing up to Panhellenic meetings because I fell in love with Panhellenic before I fell in love with Sigma Kappa. So
It's totally true. I mean, like even, serving as executive director of your national organization, that's like a really humbling thing. Like to think that, you're going to be the person that's going to lead 115,000 members. That's like a humbling thing, but it wasn't until a member of the board came and said, "I see you as somebody who's going to lead this fraternity." Then it takes on a whole new direction, a whole new meaning, a whole new level of confidence that you can do it, that I don't know that anybody in their right mind would ever think that they can do such a job. So,
totally.
so that I think goes a long way. And I also think by doing that analysis, even when the new members come in, we can find the gaps. We can say, okay, we know we have an election that's coming up soon. We don't have anybody to serve as PR chair. Where are we going to find this person? Can we go to the school newspaper and find a reporter there? Can we find an English major? Can we find a journalism major? Like, what can we do to fill that spot? And then I think
Totally.
it leads into recruitment and other things, right? So really, really good stuff. Obviously, you got a ton of skills from your experience in Sigma Kappa up and down. How do you sell these skills that you got in the sorority in your future career?
Yeah, I think sometimes like we just talked about, we think that the only people who have skills worth bragging about are the leaders, when really each and every one of us, regardless of the role that we have played in the chapter, like has gained skills. I'll just talk about one of them for the sake of time. I think the the skill that we all learned in being like a brand ambassador of our organization is so valuable for any company or any career. When you are looking at applying for a job, a company is looking for people regardless of your skill set or experience, or someone who can like understand the brand, communicate the brand, and make it part of their like lived corporate lifestyle, regardless if you are like living those values as you crunch numbers, or like living those values as you like sell a product to a potential client. And like that franchise model that Fraternity and Sorority Life has ingrained in us, right, of there being a national organization that upholds certain values and criteria of membership, and how to keep those consistent and instilled on unique campuses in different regions of the country, across the country, of different sizes, serving different purposes, but still consistent to that central goal, is so helpful for people going like into like the business world of how to like expand something good across the country or across like a region. So I think that's like a really helpful skill of just like how to incorporate a brand's values into your own values, and how to evaluate your own values and how they correlate to the greater membership that you've signed on for.
Super important. I love it. And of course, a lot of these companies have their published mission and values. So I suggest that you look at those things and make sure you have alignment with the company's mission and values and with your boss's mission and values and, the CEO of the company. These are real questions, especially for Gen Z. I think that values conversation is incredibly
Yeah,
important and all those things are aligned, because if there's a misalignment, that's when you're like, I got to get out of here because I just don't see myself in this organization. So
totally.
yeah, that's really, really good. Also, I mean, you're an entrepreneur. There's a lot of students who are listening right now that, they have this idea for a new product or service. Is there a lesson that you can share with our audience that you've learned from entrepreneurship?
I think entrepreneurship is really personal because typically we are creating solutions to problems that we have personally faced or like suffered because of, right? Like we are passionate about this, which is why we start it. And so something that I learned the hard way, and I learned a version of this in college being chapter president, but it was like definitely in a new form as an entrepreneur, is you have to separate who you are from what you do to be successful. There's like an element of what I do that's like ultimately selling my personality, right? Like there is like part of selling yourself as a speaker is a lot of like the delivery of the message, right? Because I have some like rock star colleagues that I like love that are also in the same space who have similar like learning objectives and goals from the programs, right? And so when I'm like talking about what we have to offer, a lot of that like really has to do with my story and like what makes me me. But we, at the end of the day, I have to say like who Cassie Little is as a person, her worth, her identity is completely separate from like the wins or losses of Her Sorority Journey. Like they are separate things. And I think when we are creating solutions to things that we have personally faced, we can take that company, or like I definitely in the beginning took Her Sorority Journey's like wins or losses as like a personal celebration or failure. And I think that is so important to learn. And I'm so thankful I learned that lesson at 23, 24, 23, 24, 25, right? Like in those like mid 20s years. And if I guess my other thing too is like, I think fraternity and sorority, like obviously I started a business in the fraternity and sorority space. But I think fraternity and sorority like really equips you to be an entrepreneur because it teaches you how to live something that you're really passionate about. So it makes you a really great employee, but I think it also equips you to be a really great entrepreneur. So if anyone's listening who's really ambitious and excited, I would really encourage you to go for it. What do you have to lose, And there's so many different ways to go about entrepreneurship. Like I started my company like full time, like it was COVID and I had a lot of support at the time. And so I was able to like dedicate all of my time and energy to it without being spread thin with other jobs or commitments. But there was also seasons where I was working full time and doing Her Sorority Journey on the side. And I think when you give yourself grace, that sometimes that just like ebbs and flows when you're trying to get something started, instead of putting, well, I saw so-and-so do it this way, so I have to cut all ties and go all in. That might not be the wisest decision for you or your family, or your stakeholders. So evaluate all those things and recognize there's not one way to be an entrepreneur.
I love it. Perfect answer. Really, really good stuff. All right. So I absolutely love Denver. I think it's an incredible city. I also love really good food, and I know that you like good food. So if I want a great bite to eat the next time I'm in town in the Denver area, where should I be going?
Yeah, I was thinking about this beforehand. There's a lot of really good places, and this one is definitely I would have to look and see if this is on like Denver's most popular eat places, but one of my favorite places to go recently has been Joy Hill. It's over on South Broadway and it's so fun. They've got like a beautiful outdoor patio. You can see the mountains. I love their Chili's and Pep pizza. It's like a pizza place. It's like so fresh. It's really tasty. I love that place.
All right, Joy Hill it is. I mean, I'm a big pizza guy, but I was also born in New York City, so I
It's
know
not
good
New
pizza.
York pizza. Yeah, it's not New York pizza, but it's really good. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna give it a shot. I'll let you know what I think. We'll take it step by step there. So that's good. All right. So if our listeners, if they want to book you for a program on their campus, if they want to check out your podcast, it's called Your Sorority Journey. Where should they go in order to connect with you and the platform?
Basically, you can find everything. I'd start on Instagram at Her Sorority Journey. From there, we also have a TikTok with a lot of like really fast, quick tips to help you really maximize your sorority journey. And the like links in the link in bio will take you to our website where you can learn more about our programs, links to Apple and Spotify for the podcast, and lots of other tools to help you grow.
This is fantastic. Cassie, thank you so much for sharing all this great information. I think you're absolutely brilliant. I love the vision that you have for Her Sorority Journey. I know you're going to continue to just absolutely kill it on stages all across the country. So if you're listening right now and you're looking for an engaging speaker, call Cassie, get in touch with her through the website, through social media. She's got incredible information to share with your community. So Cassie, thank you for what you do. I appreciate everything that you're doing in order to grow sorority all over the country.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. It was fun to be on.
Well, cool. Well, we appreciate that. And listen, if you're a listener right now, you enjoyed this talk with Cassie, I want you to like it on social media. I want you to share it with other college students on your campus. And we look forward to seeing you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. And we're going to see you next time.